Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9.
Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9.
Hello, and welcome to the Voices of Enchantment with Shane Barnwell and Senator Bill Souls, bringing you conversations about New Mexico and the people who call it home, and of course the chili capital of the world. Which brings me to my first super hard-hitting question, which I'll go ahead and answer myself first. Red or green? I always like red in the morning, and then for lunch and dinner has to be green. But usually I just ask them whatever's hotter. Just give me whatever's hotter. That's what I want. So to ask you, red or green?
Well, I have sort of a similar answer. And again, I do like the spicy part of it. It depends on which part of the state I'm in. Southern New Mexico's got the best green, but I'll tell you, Santa Fe, Taos, up in the northern part, their red sauce it's the best.
Yeah. And so for people who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Bill Souls, born and raised here in Las Cruces, and my role is I'm a state senator representing District 37. It's the East Mesa side of Las Cruces, so I all the time get to tell people I represent the beautiful Organ Mountain Desert Peaks National Monument area, and literally they're in the backyard of one of the houses that I lived in out in that area.
That's awesome. And then so I know that you are a senator now, and there is no session going on. What's going on when you're not in session?
This is what we call the interim time. And during the interim, there are all kinds of meetings and conferences, both national conferences, occasionally international conferences, but then also the various committees meet around the state to gather information about legislation that may be coming up, to start working on it. The interim committees are both bicameral and bipartisan, so it's both Democrats and Republicans in both House and Senate. And it really is a time we get to talk and interact with the House members. When we're in session, I hardly get to see them. We are so locked into what's going on in the Senate. I'm very fortunate I get to chair the Legislative Education Study Committee, which is the education side of things. And so we'll be looking at what kinds of legislation, what education issues are there in the state over the interim.
Yeah, and you were an educator yourself, correct?
Yes, I retired initially with 29 and a half years in public education, and that was at the university level and the public schools, community college work. I've been a principal, elementary principal, middle school principal, teacher, college faculty and staff, so lots of areas.
Now, you don't have to answer this question, but what was your favorite?
I couldn't believe that I was getting paid a lot of the time when I was an elementary principal. I'd get hugs for no other reason than I smiled at kids. And one of the things I commonly would tell people is I volunteered to work with kids. I got paid to deal with adults. Yep. And so there were lots of times it's like, I get paid to do this. And then there were times when, I had to deal with some of the adults. It's like, Bill, you're getting paid a lot of money to sit and listen to this from the adults.
Yeah. So my whole mom's side of the family is all educators. And they said the same thing. Kids are the easiest part. The kids are the reason that I do it. But man, those parents. Sometimes those parents.
Well, there's the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mm-hmm. In education, the nut doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, there'll be some times when you have to bring parents in because of a behavior problem with a child. And almost immediately, the parent comes in, it's like, oh, found the problem. Yep. The child is just like their dad or whatever. But it's not the kid's fault. I mean, they're just kids. And most of the time, even when they've got problems, the next day, they're your best friend again. They know they messed up. They know that there need to be consequences, and they don't hold a grudge most of the time. We're there trying to guide them and lead them, not punish them.
Yeah. And, what do you do for fun other than working as a senator? And then I'm sure you have a lot of stuff to do. I mean, you're the chair of a interim committee. I mean, there's a lot going on. When you have the free time, what do you like to do?
I do lots of things. I mean, some of my main hobbies is I'm a pilot. I fly a small airplane and just love looking down at the world and getting to see things and the freedom that gives you. And then I also enjoy scuba diving. That's not a great place in New Mexico. You've got to go places to do that. So I joke with people, I'm happiest when I'm not on the surface of the earth. I want to be above it or I want to be below it. But then I also have other hobbies and crafts. I do woodworking and things. And when I'm out in my shop making sawdust, the rest of the world kind of disappears. And I joke with people, it's cheaper than therapy.
Oh, definitely. And then since you are talking about flying and everything, you did come out with a new book.
That book just came out April 20th, I think is when it came out. It's been about 2 years in the making. I enjoy looking at the history that you can see from the air, and lots of it is things you can't see on the ground at all. The cover picture of it is of the Butterfield Trail. So think about the Wells Fargo stagecoaches that went from around the Mississippi area all the way to the West Coast going cross country. Well, they came up through Mesilla and then headed off towards Deming and Silver City area and then on to Lordsburg, and you can still see the trail here, 170 years later. You can still see remnants from the air. From the ground, you could, if you don't know what you're looking for, you'd hardly know what it was, but it's clear from the air. And there are bunches of pictures and stories of pieces and things that you can see from the air. And so it's been fun flying around, taking the pictures, putting it together, and getting to tell some of the history and stories of New Mexico.
Forgive me, Senator. Could I get you to turn your microphone just a little towards yourself? That's perfect.
Okay.
Forgive me.
There you go. And then I know that this is your second book. Now, you do have another book. It's called The Sausage Factory. Great play on words. I love to see it. Tell me what that's kind of about.
And again, that's the other book that's sitting here on the
Oh, yeah,
the
we
desk.
got both of them.
Both of them are sitting up here. And that one came about very different books, entirely different themes and topics. This one came about after I'd been in the legislature for about 10 years. And people were saying, well, how do you know all this about how to get laws passed and all of the nuances of how legislatures work and don't work? And nobody knows this stuff. You ought to write it down. And so that's what that book is it's how state government functions, doesn't function, how do bills get drafted, where do ideas come from, how do you get them through committee, who are these people, and how state governments really are places where democracy can work well for people if you know how to use the system and the people within it. And that's what that book does. In some ways, it kind of pulls back the curtain a little bit and shows what goes on in the back rooms of government.
Yeah, and people should know that. I think that's a book that people should read just to educate themselves as to what goes on, especially local politics. I feel like on the news, you're constantly watching it, and it's more about the federal government. It's not necessarily about the state government and what's actually affecting you at your home, at your front doorstep. And you actually went door knocking when you were politicianing yourself, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, most of the time when I was running for office, I'm a retired teacher. I don't have a lot of personal wealth to put into buying an office, so to speak. And so I figured I had to knock on more doors than my opponent did. And I think the first time I ran for office, I probably knocked on over 5,000 doors. And the second time, it was probably close to 7,000 doors. I was out walking miles and miles every day. I certainly got in good shape doing all of that. And a lot of it, like we're now getting into political season, as legislators talk about, is during the summer. In southern New Mexico, that means you're out knocking doors, 90 to 100 degree weather. Mm-hmm. So after each street, I'd be back in the car, chug a little bit more water, and then go off for the next set.
Triple digit heat, walking around. That must not be
and
nice.
Afternoons, the thunderstorms. I mean,
oh my goodness.
There was interesting one time I was out, my wife was helping me, and thunderstorm came up, and she's like, "We've got to go." It's like, "No, 5 more doors." It's like, "It's raining. Go. We are stopping." But as a candidate, you're always like, "Well, what if I lose by just 3 votes? I've got to knock on just one more door, just in case," kind of thing.
Yeah, and as far as what's going on in New Mexico, I know we talked about the storms and the really high heat. Everybody seems to right now be talking about the water shortage and how we're decreasing 25, 30%, and then now Project Jupiter's coming in. What can you kind of tell us about that?
All of the water geologists, is that the right term?
I think it's the right term. I could look it up, but
but they tell us we are in a mega drought, a 1,000-year mega drought. Now, some of that is probably just normal cyclical things, but you put on top of that the climate change that's human generated, and it's one of the worst droughts we've had in 1,000 years, and there's no real end in sight. During the summer, we'll get a little bit of a monsoon, but it's not a normal one. And in the winter, we're getting about half or less of the snowpack that we usually get. That means the reservoirs, the rivers aren't flowing like they ought to, so it's not replenishing the groundwater supplies. the farmers don't have as much water. As a result, we planted lots of pecan trees, and if you don't have irrigation water coming down the river, then you have to pump water. That's lowering the aquifers even more, and they get more salinity in them, and it's a cyclical problem. And the population's growing, and people want more water, and so all of those things make it difficult. Also, other countries do it by using desalination, and we certainly could do that, but then the water becomes expensive, and we've gotten we've gotten used to inexpensive, cheap water. We mostly just pay for the delivery of water, not for the actual water, and so people don't want higher prices on water, and so it starts hurting agriculture. It hurts growth of communities, and then with that, we've got data centers. That data centers tend to be very large users of water, whether it's part of the cooling system needed for the data center. And the Project Jupiter that you mentioned talks about not using as much water, that they're going to have a closed loop cooling system, but they're generating the electricity through natural gas turbines that use water for cooling. Mm-hmm. And so where's that extra water coming from? And it's the same water everybody's using. It's just, where do you have your straw into the pool?
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to look at it.
Fellas, I'm so sorry to bother you
No, but
again.
that fell.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. I didn't notice it doing that. I'm so
I
sorry.
slowly watched it like a...
We should have made it a joke.
We should have made it a joke.
And so the camera's watching it going,
Well, especially if it were a time lapse, it'd be like,
Yeah.
Well, and I was looking at it, and I was like, man, that mic seems low while he's talking to me.
If it does it again, what do you call it? We'll get a little more creative and...
put a rubber band or tie it or...
Or we could, can we put it on like the edge of the table, you think? And then like have something underneath. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. It could be a dumb idea. It very much could be.
Fingers crossed. Let's make it through. What do you
Yeah.
call it? Let's do recording. I'm so sorry to keep
No, it's okay.
rhythm in,
That's why I'm waiting until it's kind of a break, and then I look at you.
What do you call it? Keep up the good work, fellas. Let's get back in it. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm looking at you. I'm not noticing. The
Yeah,
micro
I know.
up and down.
Every time I see him standing up, I'm like, okay, we're doing
What's wrong?
something.
Something's
Going on. Something's going on.
Nothing about you guys. Don't worry.
And then if you guys do hear any noise going on outside, it is Friday night. This is the evening market. It's pretty cool, I think, in Las Cruces. I think it's one of the coolest things. And then I watch Kitchen Nightmares a lot. So I remember on one episode, it was Hotel Nightmares where he was here. Gordon Ramsay walked down here and he was like, wow, this town is awesome. Look at all the cool stuff that's going on. And what's cool about this is you don't even have to be a registered vendor. Anybody out there in this town or the town next to us, you can drive here, open up a tent, and sell whatever you want. You could almost have like a garage sale out here if you wanted to. Live music, a bunch of good food, because, we are the chili capital of the world. I have to keep on pointing that out. So, of course, we're going to have great food here. We have, in my opinion, we have the best food in the United States. I'm also very biased.
Well, and the Saturday morning market, our farmers market on Saturday mornings is rated as one of the top 10 in the country. And you can get farmers products there, but there's all kinds of craft things. And it's a social gathering just to walk and talk and meet friends. And when the weather's nice, midsummer, it starts to close down by about 10. It gets hot. But this time of year and before it gets super hot, it is a lovely place to be and just walk and see people and wide variety of local crafts and farmers market and honey and baked goods and just lots of really cool. And I've heard ranked one of the top 10 in the country as far as Saturday morning farmer market type of things.
I believe it. Because as a guy who has a kid now, we're always finding stuff to do that's kid-friendly. Walking through here tires him out. It's great. He gets to see people, be a little bit social, be interactive, but yet still be in his car seat. Or if he doesn't like being in the car seat, he obviously goes to my chest. And then we end up walking in it. He loves it. And, I love it, too. And then I know that you said that you love woodworking and everything. Have you ever thought about selling some of your stuff out here?
People ask me that all the time because, I do wood turnings and bowls and things. And I very quickly tell them, I don't want to do that because I don't want it ever to feel like a job. I want it always to feel like a hobby. And so I give things away to friends and make Christmas presents and things. And my wife always gets first dib on anything that I make. I might be making it for someone else, but if she really likes it, it's hers and I'll have to make another one.
Oh, yeah.
But I never want that to feel like a job that I need to do because there's a Saturday coming and I don't have enough stuff and I've got to get in there and make some things. That's not why I do it. I do it because I love the smell of the wood and being creative and doing things of that sort, not because I want to make money doing it. And quite frankly, it's the same thing with the books. I don't think I probably will never get all my costs back from having done the books, but it's cathartic to get those thoughts and ideas out and get to share some of the things that I find interesting with other people.
Well, I will do some selfless promotion for you. This book is on Amazon. If you don't know, the reason why I'm doing this selfless promotion is because the legislators here actually do not get paid in the state of New Mexico. Why is that?
It's actually in the state constitution that legislators shall not receive compensation. There's been a lot of discussion about whether we should change that or not. This last legislative session, there is now on the ballot this November in New Mexico a constitutional amendment to change that legislators get paid. It's a fairly simple amendment. I think it said legislators shall be paid. Just a simple change. It might have in it, but it might get left for the rulemaking process if it gets all the way through, is everyone wants to know, well, how much are they going to get paid? Most times people think we get paid certainly way more than we actually do because right now it's zero. But I'll ask kids in high school, for instance, they'll say, how much do you get paid? It's like, well, what do you think? They usually start out at 150,000, and I was like, no, down from that. 100,000? No, less than that. Keep going down and finally get to zero, and they're like, why do you do it? Type of thing. And I think most people think that we get paid a fairly reasonable salary for what we do. I mean, it's if you really do it well as a legislator, it's pretty close to a full-time job. I think the proposal, it might be in the actual amendment. I don't recall exactly what the legislation said, but if not, will probably get put into rule if it passes. But I support that we should get paid at the median salary, so the middle salary of the state of New Mexico. When the median goes up, the legislative pay should go up. When New Mexicans do better, legislators do better too. That way we're not getting rich, but we're not getting paid poverty wages, and it allows people to do the job and not have to hold down a second job where you're not doing either as well as you should.
Yeah, and
the median wage in New Mexico, I think, currently is about $54,000 or something. You're not going to get wealthy on that. Most people consider that middle to lower middle class wages.
Yeah, I mean, especially with all the prices that are going up. Maybe the water here soon. Who knows? Who knows what's going to... We know for gas, for sure, that's already happening. But to me, when I look at gas, it's like, well, it's always going to increase. Throughout time, it's always going to... Everything is always going to go up. No matter what you do.
But there have been times when that hasn't been the case, where we've had gas at over $3 a gallon, and then last year at one point went below about $2 a gallon. You could find it some places less than that. And during COVID and the pandemic, it went over $4 a gallon, and it did go back down. You always wonder, because when the gas prices are high, the oil companies, and there are some people making a lot of money off of it, and they don't like to not make as much money afterwards. And so there's some perverse incentives for some people to keep the prices high.
Yeah, my whole dad's side of the family all works in the oil field. So they always tell me you can always tell how good I'm doing by the cost per barrel.
Yeah.
You can tell when the oil field is doing good or not good just by the price of the barrel. It's pretty simple, just like how you were saying. Legislators will be paid. Sometimes it's as simple as that. It really is. And then as far as we talked about growth, Las Cruces is growing. I now moved into one of the new builds towards Red Hawk Golf Course, and I walked around the neighborhood, and I'm noticing, oh my gosh, there are hundreds.
I would put close to thousands of lots are platted out and buildings going up and houses. And Red Hawk Golf Course that used to sit way out on the desert by itself, they now are building houses on the interior of some of the holes. And really filling it in, and I suspect it's going to be a completely urban golf course before long. There are, like you said, hundreds and maybe thousands of houses platted to go in out there. Again, I fly an airplane, and sometimes I go over, it's like, man, when did they clear all of that out? Because that all used to just be raw desert. Yeah. And that used to be my legislative district. The last redistricting after the 2020 census, my district, which is the East Mesa side of Las Cruces, was the fastest growing area in the state of New Mexico. I had to shed something like 10,000 voters to get down to the median level for senators, which is about 50,000 voters. And most of what I shed was north of Highway 70, which out in the whole Red Hawk area is, now I think it's Senator Crystal Brantley, who lives in Truth or Consequences, but her district comes down and picks up that north part of Las Cruces.
Wow, and TRC is like almost 40 minutes away.
Yeah, it's a full hour to get up to TRC. It's just about a full hour to get up there.
Wow, and they now have there's these investors from New York who actually came and bought out I'm trying to remember the name of the golf course, Turtleback, and that golf course now, and they're making a 2-story driving range. The parking lot's getting redone. The golf carts are as fancy as possible. And, when you go out to TRC, you're not expecting any of that. And I remember I got invited out there, so I went over there, and it was this charity golf tournament. And I was like, I had no idea this place existed. And they said a lot of investors are retiring there. And, if they like to golf, they're going to put money into it. So it's pretty interesting.
It's a nice golf course. It's kind of hidden back in the hills. And one of the places, if you want a house that's right on a golf course, that you could still get it at pretty reasonable prices, I think, because it's TRC.
Yep.
And there aren't a lot of people who know about it yet. But it was clear that there were going to be a number of wealthier McMansions being put up around it because it's a nice course with some beautiful views.
Yeah. And and it's the same thing in Ruidoso, which way more expensive than TRC for sure. But back in the day, that was, get in on it before it gets hot. So it's almost like if you're trying to predict the market, definitely move into TRC as soon as possible because it seems like, with Elephant View, now you have this nice golf course, you have some hiking trails, you have fish. You have almost everything possible. It seems like a perfect place. But I think the only thing that hurts Ruidoso, which, by the way, I'm from Ruidoso, is the wildfires. And it's crazy how we're constantly in, it goes back to the drought, but we're constantly in danger. We're constantly in fire watch. We can't have campfires. And, the state of New Mexico is almost perfect for camping and campfires and everything. So, and then when you start one, then the marshal comes over and is like, hey, well, you can't have a fire out right now. It's just like, man, I don't know what we can do about that, but that's...
Well, some good things coming up this year is I heard that this is supposed to be a good El Nino year, that we are supposed to, all except the northeast corner of New Mexico, is supposed to have a wetter than normal summer, according to the Farmer's Almanac or whatever. But those really are the climatologists that are putting out those models based on El Nino and La Nina and the various models. But nobody tells the clouds that they're supposed to come over this year. You just kind of hope that the atmospheric conditions are ripe.
Also, excuse me, but who's the least trustworthy person on a newscast? The guy who's telling you the weather.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, because he could be wrong and you don't fire him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But also, I wanted to say, TRC might be something like Las Cruces, where it's going to be also a place like a filming hub. Because, we're shooting some B movies out here, but Ari Aster shot Eddington, using TRC just as a one-for-one for a fictional place. And I do think with that, they got good breweries. It's just it'll be a cultural place that builds. Plus, if you have a bunch of money, wouldn't you want to move to a place that changed its name because of a show? It's like that's capitalism.
Yeah, but that was back in the 50s, and it's still a pretty small, backwards kind of place in general. But with Spaceport there are a couple of good restaurants there, and again, they've got a couple of good breweries, and they do have some hot springs and spas and a lake nearby, and it's got a lot of up potential, but it's also a long way from a major airport and other things to get there, and so not everybody thinks of a desert resort like that. But again, people and money comes in. We were talking about the golf course getting upgrades, and certainly the lake. Though again, back to the water, the lake is at almost historic lows right now, which limits the fishing opportunities, limits the boating opportunities, and some of those kinds of things. But
yeah, and the Bosque del Apache is, from what I hear, everybody says that it is the most beautiful place. You could see a different type of bird every time you walk on a different trail. It's pretty cool from what I hear. By the way, if you guys don't know, that is Evan Hughes behind the camera. He helps this thing run, and we appreciate everything that he does. And he comes out with pretty great ideas as to what to talk about and stuff like that, other than us just flowing off the top of our head.
I occasionally will move a microphone.
Yes, he comes with good microphones, help kind of set this up so that way this looks awesome, and I think it does. And then, of course, anybody can actually use this studio as well. Another selfless shout out. And then, so I know you're talking about they're not ready for a big airport, and I know you're flying everywhere. What is kind of your favorite little towns airports to kind of fly into?
That's hard to say because it's wherever I am. Some of the most fun ones, Lordsburg is a beautiful, cute little airport. You know, it's a little one-way strip. You come right over the highway type of thing. You know, and it's well maintained. I've enjoyed flying into the TRC airport, into Socorro. The Taos airport is beautiful because you come right in over Taos Box, the big Rio Grande Gorge channel up that way, and right over that, and it sits right along the edge of it. So it's spectacularly beautiful there. And I always love Las Cruces and our airport. We have a wonderful airport out on the West Mesa and stuff, and I think it's a bit of a hidden gem. But you know, I've been to lots of different ones, and it's fun going into ones you haven't been into. There are some small ones I haven't landed at that are sort of, you know, if I get an opportunity to go into those. Some of the ones up around Farmington, they sit up on top of the bluffs, and so you feel like you're up really high, and like the runway's coming up to you because it sits up on top of the mesa.
Oh, wow.
Type of thing. And so, you know, those are a little interesting as far as just the perspective that you get flying into them.
Have you flown into Ruidoso? Because when I was living there, and I remember Snoop Dogg actually flew into us, and he was saying that he almost wrecked because it's such a crazy place to land because of all the mountains around it and the wind gusts, that it's actually like one of the hardest airports to land on. I was wondering if you were going to talk about that.
I have not gone into Ruidoso, and
okay.
Partly it's got a lot of density altitude. It sits at about 7,500 feet, and when it gets warm, you've got to be really careful because the performance on the airplane drops, and there are mountains around, and there are trees around. When I first learned to fly, and I never did, but the airport was actually right down where the golf course is. You know, the main golf course, that was the landing strip, only it was worth more to the town and the city to put in buildings and houses and a golf course than to keep the runway and the airport right there. And that also was a very tricky one. Again, you're up pretty high, you're in a valley, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity if you missed you had to do a go-around or things. And so I think they moved it, and partly Ruidoso with the racetrack and with the skiing, they needed one where they could bring in small corporate jets and other kinds of things. So they put it up higher on a mountain where they could get a longer runway and a little bit more clearances and things. But I have not flown into that one yet.
Okay.
And most of it it's not on the way to any place I go. And so unless I'm going there, I don't have a need to.
And you don't need to go there for the horse races anymore, unfortunately, because of the wildfires. Floods.
And the floods.
Yep. So, and that's what I always tell people, you know, because my house actually burned down in the Little Bear fire. And what people don't realize is after the fire, it clears everything out. So all those mountainsides, all that loose ground, and it rains, people are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the rain. And I'm like, no, the rain is scary. It's time to dig trenches. It's time to put sandbags in, railroad ties.
All that water
so
comes
many
running
things
off the hills when there aren't the trees there to slow it down and everything else. That after a big fire, you want 3 or 4 years of moderate, slow rains and stuff to get some vegetation back, because otherwise now you got floods are coming through. And it's happened several times. I've seen some of the pictures of the water going through. I've been up there and seen the damage where it just wiped out whole sections of town, just washed them clean. It was very frightening, very fortunate that there were as few injuries and things as there were. And again, to the people of Ruidoso for their resilience, and the rest of the state that really has pitched in and recognized that, they needed help. And I know there were people last summer that were here in Las Cruces staying in hotels and things because they lost everything up in Ruidoso. And so, and the racetrack, I think the first year it got washed out and they kind of went in, rebuilt a bunch of it, and then the next year it washed out again. And so I don't know whether there's going to be a push to put that track back in.
I don't.
But that was a huge summer draw for the community. And then the ski area in the winter, and if they're only going to rely on the tourists from the ski area, it's a whole lot harder for that community to keep going, at least at the levels that it was.
Yeah, and definitely visit Ruidoso. I know you've seen their advertisements. They need as many people to go to Ruidoso as possible. If you want to get away from this triple-digit heat that's about to hit, go there for a little weekend.
It's a beautiful
awesome.
place in the summer.
You don't need the
temperatures
racetrack.
are great.
You don't need the racetrack. The hiking trails there are phenomenal. Random waterfalls that you'll stumble upon. And I grew up there, so I know a little bit of the secret trails, but it's so beautiful up there, and I really want that place to survive as long as possible because, during the winter time, yes, you're going to have the ski resort and everything, but with the not as much snowfall, which last year they did get a lot of snowfall, but sometimes if there's no snowfall and the man-made snow can only survive you so much, they need tourism.
And
it's
the
pretty
Mountain Gods
interesting.
helps a bunch.
Definitely.
And they bring in some pretty good concerts and shows and other things. And it's not all just people staying there. There are people stay all through town that go out there. And so that helps some. But the racetrack was a major draw of money, lots of Texas money coming into New Mexico. That there's not nearly that level of stuff coming in anymore. And that's hard on the community.
Yeah, the locals can't make that place survive, unfortunately. There's just no way. And then, so I know that we were talking about flying, and then I know that you said that your favorite airport was here. You have a hangar there. What do you do inside that hangar?
I do have a hangar, and we call it the Soul Zero Knowledge Center. It really is a CTE, a Career Technical Education Center for young people. We've got a number of airplanes that we're working on, and we want young people to get experiences flying. And so one of my great joys is taking kids up for their first flight in a small airplane. This summer, we're having aviation summer camp out there. We put it out to the public schools, and we're partnering with NMSU's STEM network doing it, but put out the application we had a total of 40 seats available for aviation summer camp for a 1 week camp. We had over 200 applicants within 2 days. They had to close it down because there were too many applicants. And we're left with, how do you tell 160 kids we don't have room for you? We could only take 40. But that just shows what a need there is. But I'm excited. That's going to be the first 2 weeks of June. And we're going to have a bunch of kids out there showing them and getting them excited about aviation. And also out there the week before, so the last couple of days of May, the sport class air racers are going to be there doing their practice formation flying and pylon training, where they're going over 300 miles an hour at about 150 feet off the ground, going around pylons and doing their training and practice. They have to do that once a year to keep their license to be able to race, both in Las Cruces in the fall and in Roswell in the fall. And they're doing their training at the Las Cruces airport. And so one of them, their plane goes over 400 miles an hour. And I've got an opportunity to go up with one of them. I'm not flying. I'm not interested in racing or doing what they're doing. But flying, at 300 miles an hour at 50 to 100 feet off the ground, and 3G banks going around the corners and stuff, it's pretty thrilling.
I was about to say, what is the G-force like? Because the only G-force I've experienced was I was at Six Flags, and then when you go down at really steep, and your stomach kind of drops, and I was like, I could almost pass out. So I can't even imagine 400 miles an hour, then banking a turn. I'd probably pass out.
They actually set the length of the course so that the airplanes don't exceed 2.5 Gs around the turns. Wow. And part of the reason is, if you start getting higher level of Gs without the military G suits on, it can cause you to, black out or start losing control. That's one of the key things. And so they actually had to make a longer course for the guy that's now flying at over 400 miles an hour, so that he doesn't pull tighter Gs than that. And so, there's some fascinating airplanes. That airplane spent a night in my hangar when we had a thunderstorm come in last year. Oh, wow. And so I've got pictures of the still sport class plane in my hangar, the fastest airplane in the world in that class.
Well, now I have to ask, how fast have you gone?
Me flying or with them flying?
You're flying.
And again, you always have to ask, airspeed or ground speed? Because coming back...
See, I don't even know the difference.
Well, if I've got a tailwind behind me, I'm going faster over the ground, but the airplane isn't going that fast through the air. And so in my airplane coming back from Phoenix one time, I had about a 40 to 50 mile an hour tailwind up high at altitude. And I had a ground speed over 220 miles an hour. Normally, my airplane cruises at an airspeed of about 170 or so, 160, 170 miles an hour.
Wow.
And so if you have a headwind, then you're actually going slower over the ground. But if you have a tailwind, you can really scoot.
And you know and this is only from TV shows, documentaries, movies that I've seen, but when you see a flock of birds, can it truly be detrimental? Like, can everything go wrong with the birds flying and you hitting them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, most of the time, birds stay down within the bottom 1,000 feet, and I'm usually flying above that. There are documentation during the flyways, in the fall and the spring of geese getting up much higher than that. It's not common, and most of the time they hear you coming and they're moving out of the way. But every year there are a few bird strikes that hit small airplanes and things, and usually the bird does not survive. Most times the pilot and the airplane do survive, but with fairly substantial damage of windshields and cleaning up feathers out of the engine compartment.
It's just something that I've always thought about. I was like, man, if I was flying a little plane and I just see this flock of birds coming at me, I wouldn't know what to. I mean, I would try and avoid them at all costs because of everything that I've seen. It looks like they could fly through the window, and I just.
You watch too many videos.
I do.
When I'm up flying, sometimes I'll see hawks that are riding thermals or whatever, and they see me and they kind of duck down and out of the way, type of thing. I've never seen a flock of birds near me where I felt like I had to avoid them. And we typically, unlike other parts of the country where there may be an airfield right on the edge of a lake where there's seagulls, flocks of seagulls, those airports regularly have someone, their job is to drive around in the car and chase them off all the time so they don't get in the way of airplanes.
Now, I have been to your hangar, and I think the coolest thing that you have on your planes is all of them have a black nose. And because I'm going to go back to movies because I'm a movie watcher, but the red tails from back in the day. And then so I saw that, and I was like, is that kind of spurred from that idea, or what made you come up with that?
We started with the one airplane, and it had, I think, a white nose on it and stuff. And it came a little bit, we wanted the airplane to be very visible in lots of different settings. And so it's got some lighter gray on it, and it's got orange wingtips and then a black nose. Well, the black wingtips, or the black on the fuselage and the nose and the landing gear, show up against a light sky, and the light shows up against a darker background, and then you've got some orange that kind of kicks out. And so it started a bit with, rather than paint the whole airplane, just painting some parts of it to provide some contrast. And when you look at it on the ground, it's a very visible airplane in the sky, and you want to be visible to everybody else. You don't want to, like a sky blue airplane flying in a sky blue sky where you disappear to everybody else. And then the second airplane, as we started painting, it's like, well, let's kind of follow that theme. And so we painted the cowl on that one, the nose of it, black. And so we're kind of following that theme a little bit, that the airplanes in my hangar, we're the black nose squadron. Now, whether it's going to continue with other airplanes that people bring in or hangar there, I don't know. But
I hope so, because it's pretty cool.
Oh, I was just going to say, while we're on the topic of aviation, we do have in national news, we have an entire a flight carrier that is completely gone under. So I was wondering, when it comes to you get to actually travel on your own plane, but for the rest of us, flying's not becoming more affordable.
No, flying is getting more expensive, and actually I think you're talking about Spirit Airlines.
Yes.
And actually one of my very good friends is a pilot, or was a pilot for Spirit Airlines. And literally a week ago from when we're taping this, he got notice that Spirit Airlines no longer is. And so we've been kind of making jokes with him, and he's very self-deprecating about, how's it feel to be a pilot without an airplane and some things of that sort. But he actually is my flight instructor whenever I go out and need to get my recertifications and things of that sort. He's my flight instructor, and he's got an airplane hangared in my hangar and flies mine regularly too. But
I do also want to say it's strange that a company would go out of business, being that the experience of flying has changed so much from when I was a child. And just I do remember it being like I'd say a unique and like a kind of a classy experience. Whereas now they're jamming us on top of each other like sardines, and like there's not really options for I don't know how to say it, like flying with just convenience.
And Spirit Airlines was the bottom end carrier. I mean, they had the lowest things, and if you carried on even a backpack, you had to pay extra for that. I mean, they were the bottom rung. But they also helped hold the prices down of other ones and people that just needed to get from here to there. And so probably the least creature comforts on Spirit of any airlines. But now because that's gone, there isn't that pull to lower prices of other air carriers. And so the prediction is they're all going to creep up a little bit, having lost them off of the bottom. And the other airlines are looking at buying up the airplanes or the ones that Spirit was leasing and that they own. And so there'll be some reshuffling of everything. Some of my mission out at our hangar is to try and make flying more affordable. It's very expensive to get a pilot's license, and therefore it tends to only be for people who have some personal wealth. And we're trying to make it and cut the cost in about half so that every kid could become a pilot if they choose. And so doing that through some of the state funding for career technical education and some other things. So we're right on the front end of that, and that's part of that summer camp is getting kids to be inspired and see possibilities and opportunities that they could get careers in aviation. And we know there's a shortage of pilots, there's a shortage of mechanics, there's a shortage of air traffic controllers, and those are the visible jobs. And there's probably 10 other jobs in aviation for every one of those jobs. Yeah. And there's a shortage. And we need lots more people, and it can't be something that is only for the wealthy.
Yeah, definitely. And, that kind of brings back to why we have to pay our legislators. It shouldn't only be the wealthy people that have wealth on the side that are able to put time aside for that. But what made you want to start flying?
When I was probably about 12 years old, it started a little bit before that. When I was a kid, there was an airport at the university, and they had something going on that day where you go out, come look at the airplanes, and they would take kids up flying, I think anybody up flying, and it was something like, a nickel a pound, and they put you on a scale and, charge this much, and we went and flew up over Apodaca Park and back around type of thing. And it was like, wow, that's cool. And I remember looking down at all of that. That probably got my dad interested in flying, and he got his license. I was probably 11, 12 years old. And so flew with him some as a teenager and stuff around New Mexico and some of the other areas. When I graduated from college, and my dad, what do you want for a graduation present? I said, flying lessons. And he goes, okay. And so, he kind of helped set up doing all of that. Yeah. So.
And then now you took yourself in that plane, got up, had a camera, and you have history, you have education on history, so then you went and made this book. And I think that's so awesome that you were, because I'm a history nerd myself, so you're like, well, there's so much history in New Mexico that maybe not a lot of people know, and that maybe not a lot of people know is visible still. You can actually see the history. It's not only something that you can read, and it's awesome that you're able to show that to people. Again, I think this should be like episode series with PBS and KRWG. I really think it should be. It would be such a cool, every episode, let's fly with Senator Souls and let's go down the Butterfield Trail. It's awesome.
Certainly could do all of that. And in the book, besides the pictures and show you what it looks like from the air, I've got all of the sites GPS marked. And so in the book, you could go and look up the GPS site and go out there with a Jeep or go out walking and see what this looks like from the ground. And so though you can see the aerial picture, you could go and find all of these things by yourself, down on the ground. And there are things people told me about, but nobody really knew where it was. And I was trying to find Deming in World War II. Let me back up a little bit. Deming in World War II was one of the main places the United States trained bombardiers to practice dropping bombs and getting them to land the right places and using, at the time was a top secret, the Norden bomb site, and use that. And they were flying out of Deming, hundreds of flights a day. And in the desert, they carved bullseyes, and there are also some targets that are the target of a ship and of a building type of thing. And from 10,000 feet, the bombardier would take over flying the airplane and try and drop a cement bomb. So they weren't really bombing New Mexico. They were dropping cement bombs that just had enough charge they could see where it landed. So they weren't exploding, so to speak. You can still see those targets carved into the desert. Some of them are pretty easy to find just because of where they were. They didn't erode out. Some of them are probably completely gone. And there are a couple, it's like, I know this target is like right in this area. And I probably spent well over an hour doing circles around, doing S's back and forth, looking for it, and couldn't find it. I was on my computer on GPS on Google Earth, and it's like, all right, I know it's almost exactly 5 miles north of this. So I go up there and I'm looking, and finally it's like, there it is on Google Earth. And so I was like, all right, how am I going to find it when I'm actually in the plane? And it's like, okay, it's just from that road and this one, and kind of marked it, and went up, and I then found it, and I've got pictures in the book of it now. And it's a little harder to spot and see if you don't know what you're looking for.
Wow.
But there are a couple of them that were like that. It's like, I know it's right here, and it took a while of just circling around before I actually spotted it and then would get a picture of it.
And you're probably the only person that has used Google Earth to look that much into Deming. I promise you, you're the only one.
Deming is where they were taken off, but these are scattered all over the desert on the West Mesa here. There's about 7 or 8 of them that I've located and taken pictures of.
And, we'll go back to the legislative side. Is there any sort of projects or anything going on in Doña Ana County and your district that you're really happy about helping with? Something that you're kind of putting into writing, anything like that?
It's early in the interim, and so I always keep a list of ideas for the next legislative session. Some of them I talked with the state aviation director, and we haven't looked at the laws around aviation in New Mexico since the 1990s. And so she is new in her job, and they're going through all of that, and I'll work with her about any of the updates we need to make of the older laws that are now 30 years old, and see if they still make sense and where we need to make changes. So that's on my list of things. I'm always looking at things to help the public schools and around career technical education, and I'll carry a couple of bills in that area. And I always am interested in trying to look up and out to what New Mexico could be. And one of those is we ought to have a high-speed train. A high-speed train, I'd love to see it go from Chihuahua or even clear Mexico City all the way up to Denver and beyond. The rest of the world has them. It's a great way of transportation. It's efficient. It's fast. It moves a lot of people. They're expensive to build. It's millions of dollars per mile to build, but it's going to be more expensive in the future. And everywhere in the world that's put in high-speed trains, no one is taking them out, and they are building more except in the United States. And I think it's, the airline lobby, the wealthy. I mean, there's some other groups that tend to squash some of those ideas. But I always put in a bill to at least study what would a high-speed train look like that linked from Denver clear to Chihuahua or Mexico City, and what would New Mexico's portion look like? And the economic development that would grow around that over the next 20 years would be game-changing for the state. But politicians tend to have a fairly short horizon of the next election and don't usually look out to what could be 20 years from now and put in the infrastructure to start that. But I'll keep putting that out to try and challenge people to think big about what we could be, not just what we are or have been.
Yeah, and I think there's unlimited potential. I mean, you look at how much land we have, and that's probably what they were talking about when they did Route 66. I mean, look at it's taking you from coast to coast. I mean, you can do it here. And why should we not be the first one? We're so rural. There's not many developments that you're going to have to necessarily put the train through.
Most of it is public land.
Yep.
And as I drive and envision it, lots of it would be raised on pillars so you don't have cows walking across it. And it could go right up the median of the interstate, which is already public right of way. And, there are only a few places where you'd have to condemn or buy private land to do it. And if we wait 20 years, the land's going to be more expensive.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's, you're going to have the same problems. It's not going to be better. And right now, New Mexico is a wealthy state.
Yep.
But you have to have vision.
Yep. I think you do, and you have to look towards the future. If you don't, and they always say history is important because you learn from the past, but you got to learn from the past to also see, man, how did they come up with those ideas to make us where we are today? How do we keep on moving forward and moving forward?
Clear across the entire country in the past.
Yep.
And at the time, to be able to travel at 40 miles an hour across the whole country by train was game-changing for the entire West.
Yep.
We could do that again if people have vision and look up and out instead of just looking at their own greed and what has been.
Yeah, and if you look across New Mexico, like, for instance, Carrizozo's in Lincoln County. Carrizozo is probably the smallest town, least population, but it's the county seat. And it's because when they first built that railroad, it went right through that town, so that brought in so many jobs. And I know it's not the same thing, it's not the same date and time, but it could definitely do the same thing for the whole state of New Mexico.
And for that era, it was the same game changer kind of technology that was coming through that set up the economic growth, and the history that then happened after that was a result of those early decisions.
Yeah. And I keep on bringing in different quotes and stuff, and it's because I've been listening to the audiobook of Art of War. Don't know why. It's just, again, I watch movies and everything, and that's the one book that they're always referencing, and I'm like, I'm so curious as to just like why it's so popular. And it's so interesting because I think, and I'm going to get on a little tangent, but in some books and some things, you can use it in so many different fields, so many different things that you're doing. I mean, so I think it's pretty awesome. But it's just what can we do to make this state more successful? And it's ideas like that. We got to be a little bit out of the box, per se.
A little edgy.
A little bit edgy. If you don't have people hating it, then you're not doing good enough.
When I proposed the high-speed train, I'd probably get the most vehement opposition in support of, yes, let's do it, to you're crazy souls. That'll never work. Why are you even proposing such a thing? That probably generates more press than almost any other thing that I've done or covered. And I just want people to talk about it, and I want them to think big about what could be. That really look at the future and things that are going to build the state, not just create wealth for an industry, but are going to create overall wealth.
Yeah, and I mean, this state,
and opportunities.
Yeah, this state is so big as far as area that I know our population isn't there yet, but it could be. That's something that could definitely change.
Think about the balloon fiesta in Albuquerque.
Oh, yeah.
When that first started, it was little. And people talked about, well, let's make it an international. It's like, oh, people aren't going to come and do that. The Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, they have hundreds and hundreds of balloons. You can't get a hotel room in Albuquerque during the Balloon Fiesta. It has become a huge thing, but because somebody had a vision of what it could be, and put in some of the investments to make it happen. And, we've got opportunities to do that type of thing if we've got the desire to, the ganas, in Spanish, the ganas to look up and out to what can
Muchas ganas.
The desire, the foresight to think about opportunities.
Yeah, and I think there's unlimited potential. I mean, and who knows what this state is going to look like? Like you said, the aerospace stuff hasn't been rewritten in 36 years. Who knows what this state's going to look like in 36 years?
Yeah, and what do we need to do to keep up with the laws and the legislation? Just before we started this, I literally drove here straight from a conference I was at up in Albuquerque that had some people coming in from North Carolina, from Washington, D.C., some of the speakers and topic experts. And they all come up, it's like, New Mexico is so unique. It's unique in its landscape, its food, its culture, that the people here act differently. I mean, we're proud of our state, and we're very open. We like talking to other people, and people from outside feel that. And it's not something you put your finger on exactly what it is, but it's sort of that attitude that you get in New Mexico that, we like who we are, we like our history, we like our culture, we like our food, we celebrate each other, certainly it's like a family. We have squabbles and concerns. But boy, don't bring in an outside thing because we're all together that we're for New Mexico.
Yeah, and that's why, and it's cool. We're the chili capital of the world. We have the largest balloon fiesta in the entire world.
We
These
now
aren't
have
just
the national air
country.
races over in Roswell each fall, and then also another air race here in Las Cruces in the fall.
Yeah.
Is the only place in the world that has pylon racing, Indianapolis style racing, but with airplanes not going 220 miles an hour like Indianapolis, going over 400 miles an hour right there in front of you where you can see and feel and hear them going by.
And you don't have to sit there and watch them do left turns for 500 miles.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I remember I went to the, what is the one in Arizona called? It should come to me. But anyways, that was my first time there, and I remember I put in my earplugs, and I was watching, and I was young at the time, and I was like, people watch this for this long? It's just left turn.
Round and round and round.
Left turn. And I think it is awesome because I've watched one of my
the
podcasts.
sounds and the smells and the
there's
pump
something to it, and then if you do get bored, you can walk down. And there's so many booths everywhere. But and I did watch a podcast where there was a NASCAR racer, and he was like, even when you don't think anything is going on, there's a million things going on inside their head, going around everything. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying a plane going 300 miles an hour is much cooler.
Well, and the pilots and the planes, you can get up close to them. They want to talk to you about them and stuff, and they're super cool. When we've had some air shows out at the airport, and they've done like a combined car show and air show, and it's really interesting. All the car show guys that have tweaked out, and they've farkled out their cars really cool, they're overlooking at the airplanes like, whoa, how'd you do that? And the airplane guys are overlooking at the cars like, oh man, how do I put that, some cool upholstery like that in my airplane? And so it was really neat to see that that interaction between the two groups. The car guys were looking at the airplanes, and the airplane guys were looking at the cars that were all farkled out, that have all the little doodads and the fancy stuff on them.
And like you said, I mean, New Mexico as a whole, I think everybody here is so friendly. The hospitality here is amazing. And I think the only thing not unique about us is our accent. I don't think we have an accent.
Depends on what part of the state. If you come from the east side of the state, they've got a pretty heavy
Southern twang kind of?
A twang. It's not really southern. It's a bit country. It's a little bit west. It's very West Texas type of thing. And, there might be a little bit up north. You get a little bit of things. But in general, we're very much a hodgepodge of cultures and people.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you call it? Just wanted to say it's very nice that as soon as we're wrapping this up, that the music is completely just silenced itself. So after this, we should go walk around at the market, get to see everybody. But also, we're recording this on a Friday, and on Sunday is Mother's Day. So I'm just also want to put out I'm an incredibly lucky person with a great mom, and happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Yes, definitely. And my wife just became a mom. My kid is 7 months old, about to be 8 months old in 2 days. So Mother's Day, this is her first Mother's Day. It's going to be pretty special. I'm going to try and make it as special as possible. And, of course, my mom who had to put up with me, which is a lot. And I actually came out 9 pounds, 7 ounces. And I was also 2 weeks premature. So I always tell my mom, I will always get you flowers on Mother's Day for having to deal with that and deal with me throughout my life.
I was a 10-4.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, never mind. You know what? Never mind.
I was a big one. Yeah, I was big.
Absolute monsters.
And my brother was like 8'6", and my sister was 6'3" or something.
Ooh.
Yeah,
So I was a big baby.
My wife,
I was a few weeks late.
my wife was scared when my mom was telling her horror stories, and then my kid came out 6 pounds 10 ounces. We were
Like perfect size.
we were like, oh, see, look, nothing to deal with. Nothing to deal with at all.
She wasn't going to put up with that.
Yeah.
Now, my fellas, I think that was a good record. Anything else you want to say before we let people go?
It's always just feels like we're having a nice chat about interesting things around New Mexico and stuff. And I hope people don't get bored or that we talk about the same things, but it seems like there's always stuff to talk about, and wish everyone well, and hope you tune in other times. And get in touch with Shane if you've got ideas for topics that you'd like us to chat about. That'd be great.
If you want to learn anything, want us to talk about any certain things, And we're really excited for where this can go. I'm really excited for where this can go because, I think this podcast is going to be important so people can kind of get to know, of course, the state legislator that's having an impact on what's going on at your front doorstep, and may even be showing up at your front. I'm just kidding. But it's pretty awesome to see. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. And, of course, you guys have a great one. Thank you for tuning in. Whether you're listening or watching, we love you all.